Your phone battery dies. The line at the store does not move. There is nothing in your hands, nothing on a screen, nothing to scroll. Within 30 seconds, an itch builds underneath your skin, a restlessness that makes you check your pockets for a phone that is not there. You assume this feeling is a modern malfunction, a glitch caused by too much stimulation and not enough patience. But the real answer is far stranger. That itch is not a flaw in you. It is one of the oldest pieces of machinery your brain has ever run, and it may be the exact same mechanism that built almost everything you call civilization. This is boredom, and for most of human history, it was not a rare inconvenience. It was a constant companion. Psychologist John Eastwood at York University has spent years trying to define boredom with more precision than simply having nothing to do. His research describes boredom as the unfulfilled desire for satisfying activity, a mental state where your brain is actively engaged but finds nothing worth engaging with. That distinction matters. Boredom is not the absence of stimulation. It is the presence of a mind that wants something and cannot find it. Now picture an ancient human sitting beside a fire after a hunt that did not need to happen that day. No deadline, no screen, no task waiting to be finished. You might assume that life was too dangerous, too demanding, for boredom to exist at all, that every waking hour was consumed by survival. But anthropologist James Sussman spent years living among the Juhoansi, a hunter-gatherer community in the Kalahari, and what he documented appends that assumption almost completely. The Juhoansi, by his observations, often worked only a few hours a day to meet their basic needs. The rest of their time was filled with rest, conversation, storytelling, and long stretches of unstructured nothing. Unstructured nothing. Does that sound peaceful to you, or does it sound unbearable? For a brain wired the way yours is, it would have been both. Because here is the part almost nobody expects. That restless, uncomfortable itch of boredom did not sit quietly in the background of ancient life. Pushed people to act. Psychologist Sandy Mann ran a series of experiments designed to test exactly what boredom does to a working mind. In one study, she had participants complete a deliberately tedious task, copying numbers out of a phone book, before asking them to come up with creative uses for an everyday object. The bored group consistently outperformed a control group that had not been bored first. Their ideas were more original, more varied, more unexpected. Boredom, in other words, was not the opposite of creativity. It was creativity's ignition switch. Think about what that means for the people sitting beside that ancient fire. A mind with nothing urgent to solve does not simply shut off. It goes looking for a problem to chew on. It starts turning a stick into something more interesting than a stick. It starts arranging stones into a pattern that did not need to exist. It starts inventing a story to explain why the sun disappears every night, not because survival demanded an answer, but because an idle mind cannot tolerate emptiness for very long. This is the counterintuitive twist hiding inside the entire story of human boredom. The discomfort was never a bug. It was a push notification running on biological hardware, nagging your ancestors toward novelty long before anyone had a word for innovation. Consider what boredom may have actually built. Tool refinement beyond the bare minimum needed to survive. Decorative carving on objects that already worked perfectly fine without decoration. Music, which serves no caloric purpose whatsoever. Mythology, which explains nothing that needs explaining for the next meal to happen. Each of these looks, on the surface, like a luxury, something humans added once survival was already secured. But the timeline tells a different story. Evidence of symbolic carving and ornamentation appears far earlier than the kind of stable food surplus that would supposedly be required to justify it. The boredom came first. The luxury followed. Why would evolution build a mind this restless in the first place? Why not build a brain content to sit quietly once its basic needs are met? Because contentment, from an evolutionary standpoint, is a dead end. A creature satisfied with the status quo stops exploring. It stops noticing the unclaimed berry patch 2 valleys over, the slightly sharper edge a different stone might produce, the faster route through unfamiliar terrain. Boredom, uncomfortable as it feels, functioned as a constant low hum of pressure to keep searching, keep tinkering, keep wondering what else might be out there. A species that never got bored might have stayed exactly where it started, doing exactly what already worked, forever. This pressure did not disappear when humans moved into villages, then cities, then the version of modern life you live in now. It is still running underneath everything you do. What has changed is not the mechanism. What has changed is how quickly you are allowed to satisfy it. For nearly all of human history, boredom had nowhere to go but inward. There was no infinite scroll waiting to absorb it the instant it appeared. The itch had to sit there, unresolved, for minutes, hours, sometimes entire afternoons, and during that uncomfortable sitting, the mind did the only thing left available to it. It generated its own content. It wandered. It daydreamed. It connected ideas that had no obvious reason to be connected, which is, by most definitions, exactly what creative thought actually is. Now think about your own relationship with that itch. The moment restlessness shows up, what do you reach for? Researchers studying attention and idle time have found that the gap between feeling bored and reaching for a phone has shrunk to almost nothing for most people, often just a few seconds. The discomfort barely has time to register before it is extinguished. This might sound like a victory over an unpleasant feeling, and in the moment it absolutely feels like one. But Sandy Mann's research suggests something uncomfortable sits on the other side of that convenience. If boredom is the spark that pushes a mind toward original thought, then a mind that never experiences boredom for more than a few seconds may rarely be given the chance to wander anywhere new at all. The ignition switch exists. It is simply never given enough time to catch. This is not a tidy story about phones being bad and ancient life being pure. Ancient humans were not enlightened minimalists who treasured their boredom. They almost certainly hated it as much as you do, in the moment, sitting beside that fire with nothing urgent to do. The discomfort was real. But because there was no instant escape from it, that discomfort had to be metabolized into something else, and what it was metabolized into, again and again across tens of thousands of years, looks remarkably like the foundations of culture itself. There is a strange asymmetry buried in this. The feeling you try hardest to escape might be doing more useful work, biologically and creatively, than almost any other emotional state you experience. James Dankert, a neuroscientist who studies boredom's relationship to the brain, has described it as a signal, not unlike hunger or thirst, alerting you that your current situation is not a good match for your attention and abilities. Hunger tells you to find food. Thirst tells you to find water. Boredom tells you to find something worth doing. And historically, when nothing was immediately available, the brain did not wait patiently. It built something. So consider what you are actually doing every time you reach for a screen the moment that restlessness appears. You are not simply being lazy or distracted. You are interrupting a signal that, for the overwhelming majority of human history, had nowhere else to go but into invention. This does not mean boredom should be chased or worshipped. Chronic, unrelenting boredom, the kind that never resolves into anything, has its own well-documented costs, linked in research to lower well-being and even riskier decision-making as people search for any stimulation strong enough to satisfy the itch. The goal was never endless boredom for its own sake. The goal, evolutionarily speaking, was a mind given just enough unstructured discomfort to go looking for something better, and just enough time before relief arrived to actually find it. You live inside a world engineered to never let you reach that second part. Every gap is filled before it has the chance to ask anything of you. The next time your phone battery dies, the line refuses to move, and that old itch starts climbing up your spine, it is worth pausing before reaching for the nearest distraction. Not because boredom feels good. It does not, and it never has. But because that exact discomfort, sitting unresolved in your chest for a few uncomfortable minutes, is the same raw material your ancestors turned into firelit stories, carved tools, music, and myth. You are not stuck in a glitch of modern life when that feeling shows up. You are standing, phone dead and hands empty, inside the oldest workshop the human mind has ever had access to, and for the first time in tens of thousands of years, you have been handed the option to walk straight out the door before anything inside it gets built.